Hey everyone, it's Ian Benjamin, Digital Hub, and today delighted I'm with Vanessa Matthews, and this is the second series in a second episode of the new series, the D&I leadership focus. And essentially it's 18 months have gone since George Floyd passed, he died, and we are looking at what has changed, what needs to be changed, what experiences have we, Black folk, or as leaders of D&I or employers of D&I, have they seen change? So working with or having Vanessa Matthews, who's a psychologist, on board with Digital Hub today is an amazing, privilege, achievement. So I'm really looking forward to it. So Vanessa, how are you doing today? How are you? You're right, yeah?
Really good. Friday feeling. I'm great. Thank you.
Superb, superb. In typical Digital Hub fashion, what I like to do to kind of kick things off to let listeners, viewers hear a testimonial. So there's, one of them I know we'll talk about more as we get into, but it's quite a new one from you. National Grid. One of the senior managers of National Grid said, "It's honestly your D&I session, your D&I workshop is the best that she has attended." I mean, National Grid. I mean, they're massively into D&I. She must have been to loads of them. For her to say that, I think that's a real credit to you. Then we've got the operations manager at Reed, who's worked with you previously, and she has said,
many moons ago.
Goes, during this time, I found Vanessa to possess some of the best communication and interpersonal skills I've ever come across in a commercial environment. Vanessa is full of creativity, great ideas, strategy, and vision. Will never compromise on the moral, ethical perspective, which I found to be unique and quite inspiring. So, boom, we go. What can you say about that? You know, superb, right?
Stamp for approval. That's me, Auntie Jen.
You got to send her a check tomorrow in the post, right?
Absolutely, she's already in the payroll. But yeah, the first one is actually I'm an associate for a company, which I'll probably mention a bit later. But I run a comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm one of the lead facilitators for that workshop, and it's just, yeah, it's different. It's different, but we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely, without doubt. You're a qualified psychologist, yeah?
Well, I'm actually an OD practitioner. I've got a psychology background, but I'm not a chartered psychologist. I've managed psychologists. I've worked in psychological fields for years, but OD, organisational development, is probably the best way to describe me, OD practitioner. But I'm, multidisciplinary. So I do a bit of creative work. I do a bit of theatre evaluation. I do a bit of specialist HR. I run a non-profit.
I see that, yeah. We'll kind of get into that as well, so we'll kind of touch on that. There's so much to cover, so just short space of time. So, what are you working on now? What was the making the assumption it's D&I focus? Is that right?
Well, I am interim chief exec for a mental health, teen mental health, youth mental health charity, and so quite a huge part of my team.
What charity is it? Tell us about the charity real quick.
Julian Campbell Foundation. So
mental health, right?
Youth mental health, suicide prevention. Quite a huge part of my team have themselves experienced mental health, and so I include that from an inclusive leadership perspective. So I'm living and walking the managing diverse teams from diagnosed mental health to undiagnosed or just neurodiversity. So for me, that's my lived experience of inclusive leadership. And then in my other hats, I'm obviously doing consulting, and as I said, I do some associate work as a lead facilitator on D&I or inclusive leadership and race-based inclusion.
Right. Okay. Fine. So is that where you crossed paths with the manager from National Grid?
Yeah, that's right. About a couple of weeks ago. This month, we ran that workshop, and yeah, it's impactful because I don't consider myself a D&I expert, and that's not just imposter syndrome. That's genuine kind of, I avoided ED&I for quite some time for a number of personal reasons. I should share that personal reason. We're in a podcast, let's be open. So I didn't want to be pigeonholed. So I didn't want to be a Black practitioner, a good Black practitioner. I wanted to be a good practitioner that happened to be Black. And so in the environments that I was in at the time, and D&I was just, hitting the landscape, with the best intentions in the world. I had lots of managers and organizations speak to me about, D&I, and I kind of thought, no.
Yeah, but what are you talking about? You're talking about like 18 months ago, or you're talking about like even
No,
further
we're talking about the beginning of my career.
Oh, okay.
I've only really felt comfortable leading the D&I conversation since George Floyd and Black Lives Matter in the last 2 years.
Last 18 months, 2 years.
18 months, 2 years in this unapologetic space. Because I felt that there was a dearth of organizations who were ready and intrigued, and I'm an OD practitioner. I'm inspired by watching organizations evolve and how they achieve their goals whilst bringing their people, at a kind of just quite a generic sense. That's what inspires me. But then when I started to hear organizations talk about genuine efforts beyond measurement. I mean, I've heard 20 years of companies measuring that they're not meeting their D&I standards.
So, okay, so right there, let me ask you this. So for you not being involved in it prior to that, is that because you felt as though it's just falling on deaf ears, and you'd be putting the wheels in motion and spinning the wheels for no reason? Yeah,
so a bit of selfishness in terms of career management. I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I quite liked going into corporate environments and saying, well, you do DI, do you? And I'd say, no, I don't. You tell me. So it's a little bit of personal arrogance, but I also, because I didn't feel the conversation was genuine, it wasn't authentic. It felt very tick boxy, inspired by it. And I think there was this kind of unwritten agreement. And I actually remember I was a junior project consultant in a firm of psychologists, and we were doing some impact work on a very well-known global organization's assessment center. And the kind of the acceptance was, well, we've all got a bit of D&I problem. None of us are hitting the standard. And I kind of just thought, I don't know how passionate I could be about a discipline that's so comfortable saying that. As much as it was a statement of reality, I kind of just felt there really wasn't the impetus to change.
Kind of grouping it all together when there's just, it's just like, it's not relevant to where you're coming from it, and kind of just brushing it all under the carpet. We've all got D&I issues in that, and don't worry about it type of scenario.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put myself in that role. I wasn't going to lead that conversation. So it didn't feel impactful. It felt very, I'm not disingenuous, but I think, very overly focused on measurement. And not particularly inspired, and I mean that with no disrespect to those really great D&I practitioners.
Because obviously, because I'm making the assumption again, I'm pretty sure that over the last 18 months, being drawn into it now because the spotlight's on D&I. It's a different ball game, right? Clearly,
totally different ball game. I mean, I also was very clear that I still only wanted to do inspired EDI, DI interventions. And so I very deliberately, after some awful experiences with some practitioners that were completely on different pages to me, I reached out to an experiential learning company. And so I worked with one of the firms that I work with, Enact, who are drama-led. And so they tackle the subject with some humanity. They use actors. They, recreate scenes that most of us are familiar with, but we've forgotten about.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and so that's the workshop that Testimonial came from. And so you've got experience, board level, right down to all staffing groups.
So that they perform it in an office, or how do they perform the actual?
Both. I mean, pre-COVID, it would have been in an office, but virtually it's online.
Oh, is it?
You'll get an kind of insight into a performance management conversation, for example. Where we have common problem being, particularly in some public sector environments, just lack of progression, or Black and minority ethnic staff score considerably lower than their white colleagues.
How long's each, what do I call it? Each segment?
Workshop. Yeah.
No. When someone's acting it out, how long's each scene?
5 minutes.
Right.
5, 10 minutes.
I need to know about that. I love this. What's it called again? The company that does that?
Enact. I love them too. So yeah, they're really inspired, and I enjoyed them, and I get to be human, and I get to humanize the D&I conversation. There's no finger wagging.
No.
There's no shaming. I'm really open about the fact that there is racial trauma attached. So I'm not lighthearted about it, and so I contextualize this unapologetically Black space. Yeah, when people are talking about what that means, what it means is being really authentic and true to yourself. CNN describe it as being unconcerned with what white people think. And so what's happening is people are now beginning to say what they perhaps never felt they could.
That's right. 100%. I mean, because even this conversation now, having a podcast about this, I mean, I had the platform to do it without thinking, what are you doing that for 18 months ago?
Absolutely.
Like, what, really? Why are you doing this? Or
Absolutely.
what's that about?
Absolutely.
It just wasn't, it wasn't spoken about. And
and not that I wasn't concerned about those issues, and I've also kind of always been community focused, and direct my energies through that way. I've done coaching, before, and coaching other Black leaders or Black graduates, new starters into the workplace.
Right.
It's not as if it wasn't of interest, but if the discourse is going to be, in my opinion, overwhelmingly adversarial. And, bear in mind, I'm a change practitioner. So I think quite mechanically about organizations' readiness for change, what they're trying to achieve, the trade-offs that you have to make. But when it came to the D&I conversation around change, it just wasn't somewhere that I felt was making enough progress. And I wasn't, what are the skills associated with D&I beyond being lived, the lived experience? Are they truly interested in how I can really help them think about how D&I can help their organization commercially, or even serving its community, whatever the sector.
Okay.
So
cool.
That's for me what Unapologetically Black has done for me as a practitioner, and I think probably what a lot of organizations are experiencing.
Unapologetically Black, love it, absolutely love it. I mean, having that confidence now as a Black person to kind of be apologetic, I mean, it's great, because before, honestly, so I'm with you with that 100%. So let me ask you something. So do you think the typical SME corporate employer, they know what to do in terms of making change, or think a lot of them don't know what to do first in terms of approaching D&I within the workplace?
I think they do. I think many do. I think what's happened in this unapologetic space is the whole agenda is being reinvigorated. So again, I mean that with no disrespect for the many practitioners that have been doing really great work. There's now been a whole, there's a bastion of organisations that either are ready to have the conversation when they simply were just not doing it. It was just simply a statement you put in your website and your handbook, we support D&I, but there was just nothing else beyond that. Or looking at your practices and saying we need to get a bit deeper, we need to get a bit richer with our work. So particularly from a talent perspective, we're living in this kind of, expectant economy, that kind of concierge, white glove, employees, candidates have really high expectations. Really high expectations. And so they're looking at your organization and they're saying, we're not going to just listen to the talent message. We're looking at what you do with your consumers, what you do in real life. And if it's not matching up, we're going to respond with our feet.
I mean, there's so much more that so much going on, even from a green right now, I've got COP26 going on. And so people, candidates are looking at companies more so than ever before, not just on their Glassdoor page, but you're absolutely right. Are they really walking the walk?
Exactly. So I think organizations need to be careful about this kind of, the Instagram world of, presenting this kind of gloss that we are inclusive. Definitely. To it translates, when your candidates come to interview, are they going to have that same experience of fairness? And beyond that, when they get in the door, what happens to them then? Because we're starting to see that we're having organisations make some headway in terms of recruitment, but then they leave, which is such a wasted effort. So,
I mean, I think
making sure inclusion runs through from beginning right through the employee life cycle.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a recruiter, so right now I'm on a podcast, so kind of like part recruitment at the door, so to speak. But you're right, in terms of candidates seeing that from an inside, it does definitely, black candidates, or BAME candidates, they want to see individuals like them. They want to see that trust is there within the organisation to support them and develop their careers. Otherwise, they're just going to leave. They're not going to be able to retain. They're not going to retain people. And I
But
think
you
over the
asked me, sorry, I don't know if I hope I answered the question. You asked me, do I think organisations know what to do? I think they have a sense, but with this reinvigorated landscape, I think there's some nervousness because, having employees quite openly. I mean, I remember the first time I ran the workshop, a few months back, maybe last year, employees were saying in public forums, this is white privilege, and it was quite inflammatory. And I think organisations are afraid to address it, because how do you navigate that intense feeling alongside all the other employee groups that want to be acknowledged? So it can be a bit of a minefield.
Okay.
I do think there are a lot of organisations that don't know how to navigate that.
So let me ask you this then. So what would be some 3 or 4 takeaways for companies to stop doing, since over the last 18 months, things that you've seen that have been put into place since this whole ED&I spotlight has been switched on, since George Floyd and BLM, within that window of time, 18 months, 2 years nearly, what have you seen that needs to stop?
Okay, I mean, it's really got its head. I think that definitely stop using token gestures. They will be seen through, transparent, and not, people will respond to them. They'll go on your social media and they will talk about efforts that are disingenuous or just appear to be virtue signaling, yeah, the kind of notion that it looks good, they look woke, but what's going on behind closed doors is completely different. So I think there's definitely something about, stop using token individuals. Your Black employees, they may be unapologetic and so therefore vocal, or they may, just like yourselves, be exasperated and just want to get on with their job. So don't assume that your Black employees want to be part of this agenda. Be sensitive about how you approach them, be engaging. Ideally, if you've got an affinity group, that would be best to kind of work out how you can sensitively engage with your Black population. But if you haven't, don't presume that because somebody's of colour that they have the appetite to, or skill level, to navigate.
Engage with it and apply themselves to it,
Yeah, you have to be both. I mean, the evidence suggests that D&I initiatives are best received when it is delivered by somebody of colour, but that must not be interpreted as, therefore, any person of colour can deliver this. You still need to be an OD practitioner. You need to be mindful of how organisations change, how they learn, how they evolve, how you navigate power and politics, broader agenda of what does the organisation deliver, what's its bottom line, and can you weave D&I into that conversation, not just the moral conversation. That's where we're going. Being really demanding, impactful interventions. And so, find a practitioner who's skilled at that. Not just a Black practitioner or Black employee. Black employee, even worse, but a skilled practitioner, I would say, are the main takeaways.
Okay.
And just address it humanly. No more finger wagging, unconscious bias, 45-minute modules that you watch in your induction, you never ever return to them again. Let's have some real conversations, because beyond those kind of uncomfortable silences are some really deep connections and an opportunity to really deeply engage with your employees of all creeds and colours. So again, the evidence suggests that inclusive leaders, they're impactful both on kind of non-typical, whether that be neurodiverse or just women, minority-based candidates, but also your other employees see you as a more emotionally competent, culturally competent, well-rounded leader. So there are dividends to be gained from inclusive leadership beyond just ticking the D&I box.
Okay. Anything else you think that is that you've seen needs to stop, from these? One more item, perhaps, or
I suppose just not making an agenda. Don't also, even if you do bring in a D&I person, and I've seen a few organisations pay quite handsomely for D&I experts, which is great. Great to see that financial commitment, because that's important. Don't speak to D&I, but then not award a budget to an individual leading it. But also make sure it's realistic. Don't, you can't have one person going and fix all your problems. So ideally, if you can think about something a matrix or organization where line managers have secondary responsibilities to champion an agenda.
So okay, well, let's switch it around a little bit, just real quickly. So if it's a company that wants to make some changes and say maybe 150 people in size, 150 employees, they're not huge, but they're still not a typical startup, if you like. What would be the first thing that they do? I mean, would it be to look at number of employees? Would it be to what would you think? What would be one of the first things that you suggest they do in terms from a data ED&I perspective?
I think collecting the data is usually step one. Measurement, know who you've got to know what the issues are. So some survey data, or even just from an employment perspective, from a recruitment perspective, collecting data about the type of candidates that are coming through and where they're falling down. If you're not even seeing them, then of course you need to be thinking about how you attract, what sort of agencies you're speaking to, where are you advertising. But if you can finding that actually,
and maybe the advertising copy, like maybe that, so that how you're writing the adverts. Right through to, of course, if you're getting them through to interview stage, but they're not, passing interviews, then you might want to look at some kind of training with managers, some unconscious bias training, which is getting a really bad rap at the moment. Unconscious bias training is getting a really bad rap because I think that's because it was considered the panacea of everything. And so, we're now beginning to say that's just not enough. Sure.
But I still strongly believe that it's, through...
It's a step in the right direction.
I do, because...
Do you know what I mean?
But when we talk about institutional racism, but buildings don't live, they don't breathe, they're led by people. So we have to engage with people and we have to make sure that we are talking directly to them about bias. There are also different ways to do bias. So you can, as I said, give somebody a module, sit them in front of a computer for 30 days and say, there you go, your unconscious bias has been fixed. Or you can actually do some real work. You can start saying, well, let's match your data and the areas that you are struggling with the attitudes and perceptions about that data.
Okay, interesting.
So, for example, quick example, somebody did some research, nameless, organisation will remain nameless, but they said that they did some research. I question whether that was research or whether that was just anecdotal. 2 or 3 white managers said, we are unable to give feedback to our Black staff because we're afraid of being considered racist. And so that was interpreted as the problem is that Black staff are not being told when they're a problem. Everyone's afraid of them. And because I was in the room, I was able to say, well, no, that's not, let's dig a little deeper. Actually, the evidence seems to suggest that, yes, Black staff are not getting the feedback and so therefore missing out on promotional opportunities. They're not getting that really rich, direct development, advice, and they're just kind of being left. That's not the same thing as the problem is all of our white managers are afraid of our Black managers. Subtle difference, subtle but significant. And there was no agenda to achieve that, but that's the importance of having somebody in the room who is able to speak, who you've given the space to be authentic and unapologetic in their perspective.
It just sounds wrong. It just sounds, the way you describe that, it sounds like, you know what I mean? It sounds wrong.
Well, I'm a natural optimist, so I don't believe there was any untoward appetite, but I'm, as I said, that's the importance of having diverse people around the table who can see that problem and just instinctively say, and then these are people that I know, who I respect, who I have high regard for, so that I'm not accusing them of anything, but I'm giving you that example as to why I'm so glad I was in the space and to say, that doesn't ring true.
No, right, exactly that. And maybe you being there, them, made them feel comfortable to say that. They may not have said it if you weren't there. Totally. So, okay, cool. I want to speak to you about switching and so forth. I mean, in terms of the code switching and whatever, what's your thoughts on that? What's your perception on that? Can you explain that to somebody who's not aware of that term, because of how that's affecting how people carry out the switch? Can you a bit of background to that?
Yeah, so it describes, the BBC's got some really good bite-sized bits. It may not still be actually online, but they certainly at one point had some really good examples of, the kind of efforts that others are having to adopt in order to fit in. And so for many of us... What do you mean?
So typically, people are changing their authenticity to fit in with white population in the workplace. It could be like a football team where there's like, you know, only 2 black guys or 1 black guy in the team, so therefore the black person changes how they would act or whatever. Or
it could be. I mean, the article I referred to, you know, CNN talking about unapologetically black. I mean, it can be as simple as, I'm afraid to eat chicken in the you know, the staff room because of the perception that, you know, black people eat chicken, and so I've got to hide that side of my blackness. And you know, and I think it's interesting because often people hear that and they think, well, what do you want me to do about it? And you know, I suppose there's something about, do you provide spaces where people can genuinely be themselves? And to, you know, just that extra recognition of privilege, I suppose, that, you know, others are not having to endure that additional effort to fit in. When it comes to hair, for example, and that's a classic one at the moment. You know, I remember when I first had, you know, this hairstyle. I mean, even some of my black girlfriends were like, wow, you're going into the workplace with natural hair. And I'm like, how is it a revolution for me to wear the hair that I was born with? How is that? How is that controversial? And I personally just
found it's madness, absolute madness.
It's madness. For me, as a practitioner, I've always found that people respect that authenticity and actually the sense that I'm not trying too hard, but just the feeling that you, as a you know, as a practitioner, as, you know, somebody working in a corporate environment, cannot bring your full self. What does that say? Why not? Why can you not bring your full self?
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
think it applies to both race, sexuality, a myriad of things.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm with you 100%. I mean, because obviously from a recruitment perspective, I remember years ago there was before there was Zoom and stuff, and I was recruiting a sales guy, as a black guy, and he had locks. I knew from his LinkedIn profile he had locks. And a conversation, I said, look, I remember saying to him, we didn't have an argument about it, but we had a debate about it. I said to him, you know, if you just make sure you got your locks pulled back. He's like, why? Yeah, and he was joking with me because he was going to pull them back, but he goes, you know, he's like, and I'm like, well, no, it just looks better. It just looks neat, doesn't it? It looks neater. And he goes, yeah, but he goes, you taking away mine? I'm like, no, not at all. I want to wear them down. But I was like, you know, and he goes, of course I'm going to put them up. And I was like, okay, cool. But I'm thinking, you know what I mean?
Can you imagine how it felt bringing it up if you were white? You wouldn't have been able to.
I know, yeah, exactly that, you know. But I mean, I've gotten to know him, and his name's Richard, actually based in Watford, actually. I don't know whether he's listening to this, but I remember that conversation. I put him forward to another recruitment job, actually, and I should have said that. Oh my gosh, people can probably search out who he is. But yeah, and yeah, it's an uncomfortable conversation, you know what I mean? But he was just messing around with me. But I never forget that. So it's, you know, and because of course you want your natural identity to. I wasn't saying telling him to not wear his locks or cut them off. I'm just saying how to wear them. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, that's true, man. I've got to be careful, man. I've got to be careful about.
Yeah, you know, and I think we can use some common sense. I mean, I, for example, for the most part, have been able to be myself. I've always kind of just taken it on the chin. If people are uncomfortable with that, you know, oh well. But you know, recently I started noticing, not recently, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I started to notice that, particularly when I travel, I have to dress well. And I know it's a silly example. It's a really silly example.
What do you mean by that? It's a good dress well. What do you mean? You don't really go out in pajamas. I mean, what do you mean?
Well, you know, you fly. You typically wear something comfortable, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You meant flying. I didn't know that. I think you meant like you're going to get on the train or.
No. I mean, in the airport. If I'm traveling
okay.
Because I suppose in some regards, you know, my expectation to be treated well because of where I'm from, you know, they get challenged when I'm in another country, and you know, the difference in how people respond to me. And that's, you know, that's as a woman, you know, I'm a fairer skinned woman, you know, and the difference in how people treat when I've got a business suit on in contrast to when I've got a tracksuit on. And that could apply to anybody.
Yeah, it does. I was going to say that. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah, but not to the degree that I feel, you know what, actually, I'm just treated so badly. I've had so many, it's such a contrast. I now don't wear, you know, I don't wear tracksuits to
airport, whether on the flight.
Airport. But I think about our young black boys, and I think about how they go out into the world and what energy they receive. You know, it's difficult to quantify.
Oh, definitely, massively. I mean, but wow, again, one of the things that I take with me when I shut my door. It's just like, you know, if I go out, you know, the tracksuit, then I just know that's going to be that perception, and it's almost like it's a privilege for the white man to get to know me, to understand that I'm not a basketball player because I'm 6'10" or whatever, that I am.
Yeah. And if we just translate that back to work, I think the point I'm saying is when we have conversations about dress, I'm not afforded. I know, I don't care what anybody else says. I know I can't dress a certain way. Other people might be able to get away with it, but I know I can't. I haven't got the extra effort or patience sometimes to have to prove that I'm worthy because of the first 10 minutes that may be considered that I'm not. So I'll just dress just to kind of, cut
really?
that out.
What on a work perspective, or just in everyday life? You just.
Yeah, I mean, in everyday life, I'm going to live my life, right? So I live my life, but I'm just saying where I have to kind of weigh it up and where I think, what's the risk of me being comfortable?
Right, okay. You got to think about it. You got to think about it.
You got to think about it. And I'm under no illusion that every human being thinks about their dress. I get that. Just some have to think about it a little bit more, and the consequences are a little bit more dire if you don't observe that right social protocol. Because I know I've been in corporate environments where people jeans and trainers, and it's fine. Not everybody's afforded that. So when we talk about code switching, just really
definitely. That's really interesting.
And what we call microaggressions. It's these kind of micro insults or kind of unintentional quips, comments that have an impact on your well-being. So one of the things I say in my workshop when I deliver this workshop is, this conversation does not sit on a bedrock of shame and finger wagging and you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And I know we're living in that kind of culture. It's really just about being compassionate, being mindful, being compassionate about the journeys that your colleagues are taking.
Without doubt. I mean, it's an interesting point you make. These workshops are amazing. I mean, we need to kind of get some video footage of you delivering these workshops. I think it's going to be, eye-opener for a lot of people a lot of companies that are still tiptoeing around doing something about D&I. I mean, so I don't know.
Gentle way to do it, and bar one individual who felt that it was, irrelevant what he was thinking. I think it was clear bigotry, but 99.9% of the responses are, this is really fantastic work and really impactful and thought-provoking and safe.
Definitely.
And you see all the nuanced experiences of people that you assume are having an experience that they're not. So that's everything from people of color just saying, I am just so done with this. I'm so tired of this. I don't want to even engage in this. From white people who might be saying, actually, I want to help. I want to be doing the right thing. I'm genuinely confused.
Right. Definitely. So, I mean, do you want to do more work in this space as a consultant in D&I space? Do you want to do more?
Well, I go where the universe calls me. And so I used to be really career focused and really clear plans about where I want to go. Now I'm at the stage where I've kind of accumulated, I think, quite a lot of really good skills. I want to go where I'm inspired. And so I've been sort of talking about wanting to do more disruptive or transformative D&I in terms of helping to initiate the conversation, particularly at leadership level. People speak to me about all sorts of random things. I'm happy to hear, as long as it's innovative, inspiring, and impactful. I don't want to do any boring D&I projects. I don't want to be wheeled out and token gesture. I have been declining. I will decline those sorts of roles. I'm not going to be hired just because I'm the black face that happens to speak well about the subject. I really want to contribute to an agenda that's impactful. So yeah.
Fantastic. And we're going to get into our quick fire round soon, which comes up on each episode. But before we do that, obviously, clearly want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been amazing. Really, I love the unapologetic vibe. Love it. But is there anything that you want to say to our growing audience of listeners and viewers about you?
Oh gosh, that's probably on the
spot. That you'd like them to know about you. Sorry.
Well, I think I've already shared, and I'll give reference some testimonials. Some of them are quite old, but I think there's a kind of a theme about being. I think I've always been quite unapologetic, really, which hasn't always landed me in the best of spaces. But it's been perfect for me because I've ended up where I want to end up. And I think once you become authentic, you give permission for others, and then there's just this deeper connection more rich, meaningful conversations, which is where innovation is born, really, when people are kind of themselves and they're comfortable. So yeah, just that, I guess I've done lots of types of work, but where I am now is just doing inspired work.
Superb, superb. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, wonderful. So quick fire rounds.
Oh, I didn't practice.
Yes. Bit of a surprise, bit of a curveball for you, bit of a curveball. So right, but nothing too scary. So right now, what's in your iTunes? What are you listening to right now?
Oh, cool. What's in my iTunes? What did I download the other day? So a bit of jazz, kind of neo soul.
Yeah. What artists you got right now? What's it on play?
Greg Porter.
Gregory Porter.
Hold on. Let me not lie. I don't want to lie. I forgot his name, and I don't want to look more.
I love Greg Porter, man.
Come back to that one.
No, you must have your tunes on, right? You can just flick over to your tunes.
Well, I've got. All right. Well, hold on then. It's just suddenly disappeared. Oh, how bizarre. I
do like Greg Porter. That's in there, fair play.
Come back to it, because I just updated my computer and it's just lost everything.
No way. Excellent. Okay, cool. I'll come back to that. So, what's your favorite tipple? We go for a soon.
Bailey's, which is so cheesy and generic, but
it's a Bailey's,
sorrel and ginger.
Sorrel and ginger. Wow.
Rum and
coke. But that's not really alcoholic, is it? Sorrel and ginger.
Well, you didn't say alcoholic.
Oh well, because alcoholic tipple.
Yeah. Okay. Bailey's. Or a strawberry daiquiri.
Okay, cool. I can down with that, because we're going to have that a few drinks leading up to Christmas, so I remember that. What's your favourite sport?
God, none. Netball, volleyball. I used to play. I grew up in a household of men, so I can explain offside rule.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, you better than me, because it's changing every 10 minutes.
Don't test me to do it though. Don't ask me to do it.
No. Why? Because it's changing all the time, man. It's a nightmare. And they could put this because this variation, that person does this, and he's in front of that. It's a nightmare, and he's not interfering with this and interfering with that. It's a total car crash. Okay, what's your favourite car?
I just have always liked Mercedes.
I'm
terrible with the names. The big one, the big shiny one.
The ML.
To say?
Is it the Mercedes ML, the big one, the four-wheel drive?
Yes.
I've got an ML.
No, you haven't.
I have. I've got an ML.
Send us a picture.
I look at it now. I'm a window. I've got an ML. Well, I'm a big guy. I can't drive a sports one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, okay, cool. What's your favourite holiday?
Oh God, I've travelled quite a bit. So I suppose Kenya, safari is probably the most impactful. Egypt, loved Egypt, didn't expect to. Artists, can I come back to artists now?
Yeah, go on.
Little Sims, I'm really into at the moment.
Sims?
Little Sims.
I've never heard of them. No, I've not heard of them.
Independent soul, neo soul, I suppose.
Yeah. UK there. Little Sims.
Really
Joy Sims, like coming
it's to my 80s. It's a bit.
I like a bit of Joy Sims, man.
You've aged yourself just in that one step. Who doesn't love Joy Sims? But she's not very modern.
I thought you said Joy Sims.
No. That's Little Sims.
But I don't care, man. I like Joy Sims, man. I'm sticking with Joy Sims. I don't care. Definitely, man. I'm going to own that one. I don't care. I'll take the grief on that one. And then so lockdown, Netflix happens, or Netflix grew. What was your TV episode or your series that you watched?
I'm so terrible with shows. I've got such a short attention span, so I'll binge and then I won't even watch the end. I'm like, oh, I've seen that now. Let's move on.
Oh, really?
I know. My girlfriend was like, "What are you crazy? How could you not want to know the end?" So even Peaky Blinders, I kind of really got into, but I still didn't see the end.
Really? Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That's really good. That is. Really
Squid
good.
Game.
You watched Squid Game? You have to say Squid Game.
Loved Squid Game.
That's good, wasn't it? But don't you reckon the first 2 episodes were really slow and boring? The first 2 or 3 of them were really like dragging it out.
Yeah, no, but I binged.
I did, yeah.
I just binged, like quick fire, and got right to the end, and
But you didn't fast forward for it. You just watched it watch them back to
No,
back?
no, but I didn't fast forward, but I just mean as in
in 2 days, you watched the whole lot in 2
a couple
days?
of days. So I didn't get a chance for it to be slow, because I was like, right, the next episode. Right?
Wow,
So,
wow.
probably weekends, I think I binged. Yeah.
Wow, superb. So in that period, would you say that that's the best thing you've watched in a sort of lockdown era, or would you say anything else before that?
Best thing I can think of. I'm too embarrassed to say the other TV I watched, but I'm going to just say.
No, you've got to say it.
I just say that for the most part, I'm listening and reading highbrow stuff, and so to balance it out, I have been watching Married at First Sight. Don't shoot me. Don't kill me. A little bit of trash TV.
Yeah. I've seen it advertised.
Nothing like a little bit of trash. When Housewives of Atlanta.
What's that like? I keep seeing advertised.
I love all of that. But as I said, it's to balance out all the highbrow stuff that I might be,
Yeah, definitely. Now, fair play. You got to blend of both. You know what I mean?
So balance.
So to advertise the Wives of Atlanta, because I lived over there for 4 yees and years ago.
Oh, you did.
Some of my age, but so is it mainly like the high-end black couples mainly on that program? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The wealthy, like living sort of footballers and all that sort of stuff.
It's the I think there could have a lot of sports player wives and
gotcha.
famous wives. But there's also some evidence that they can't really afford the houses that they're living in. So
really, is it?
Yeah, apparently. But who am I? It looks good. They look good. It's entertaining. Who cares?
Yeah. Superb. Well, that's it. We are done with the quickfire round. It's great.
Oh, cool.
We lived under the bonnet.
Yeah.
Vanessa Matthews live, so we kind of got more of an understanding of you as well on the real side. But listen, you've been an amazing guest. I love the unapologetic vibe. Beautiful. Thank you so much. We want to do it again. I know we're talking about things in 2022 between you and I. So something else for our guests and our listeners, to look forward to. So
I would be delighted to come back. So yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you for the platform. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate it.
See you.